It's another episode of The Grow Show, episode 2, season 2.
Glenn and
Keshelle. Listen, I love this year's theme or this season's theme because it forces people to really step out of the box. And, growth is such a common word. And we want you to really consistently remember growth, but also do it boldly. And so this episode is all about how do we grow boldly? Now, last episode, we issued a challenge. I want to know, comment below, how many of you did the challenge. And the challenge was think of something that you want to, something new that you want to do, that you want to do. And this episode, I want you to at least in the comments, let us know if you did it. Let us know if you did it. I know for me, one of the things I really want to do boldly, perhaps this week, is I want to try some new food. I am so closed when it comes to food, y'all.
Yeah, we're both closed. Like in all our travels, we don't usually experiment.
You know, I guess let's pause there because we could talk about that in the framework. So our episode today is how do we grow boldly, right? And we came up with an acronym for the word BOLD that I think will be really helpful to, as you go through this whole challenge of growing boldly, you keep these things in mind, right? So you go start.
So you want to, first of all, you want to be brave. We talked in episode 1 about the spirit of fear and being paralyzed by fear. And so step out of that fearful arena, and I call it that pool or pond of fear that keeps you trapped in it. Just become brave and just make the bold step. Think about something, especially something that you are fearful about doing, and ask yourself, why am I fearful of doing this?
And bravery is such a big word. And there's several ways that you can be brave. One of the things is bravery in any risks, career risks in your business or your career. Like, what risks do you want to take this year in your career, in your business? We are afraid of, I'm not afraid of risk. A lot of people are afraid of risk. So they think about the worst that can happen.
Yeah, I'm a lot of people. I'm growing in that area.
And so what risk are you holding off that you could do bravely this year? Me, I run toward risk. I acknowledge the risk, but I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? Am I gonna die? And if I'm not gonna die, I'm good. I'm gonna take the risk. And the risk sometimes hurt. Because I took a risk recently. We can talk about that later.
You want to open up that can of worm?
I took a risk
you want
recently.
To open it.
And I made a brave decision. And I'm a coach. Everyone knows that. And so this year I really wanted to invest in a coach for me. I've always had coaches as long as I've been in business. But for the last year and a half, 2 years, I didn't because I really was searching for a new coach. And I finally found a coach and a community that me as an individual that I can be in, which is exciting because it's around a topic that I think I needed to focus on. I need to focus on in my life and business. But
Which topic that is, honey?
We can come back to that.
Okay.
I made the brave decision, though, to invest significantly, a significant amount of money in this coach. And it was significant in that as a couple, we have some goals and priorities that require revenue this year. Like, we're building again. And so I made the brave decision. I didn't tell him, okay? I didn't tell him. So I made the brave decision to, spend some money on that. And I felt it immediately because I'm like, boy, you know what?
Come on, do tell us.
I was like, boy, this was a chunk of money coming out of my account. I didn't really plan for it. It was money that could have been used for other projects, but it was a brave move, and I'm happy that I made the decision because I can see ways that I can truly grow in this area, but I had to make the brave move of spending the money that I feel like I didn't have because of other priorities and other commitments, but I did it anyway.
And also the brave move of not telling me.
Yeah, and I eventually had to become even more brave to tell him. That was something too.
That was an episode all by itself, and that was an episode of also my growth, because in the past I would have gone from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you made a significant investment without consulting me or running across me or whatever? And my whole demeanor was different. I took on a different approach because I needed to see the growth in myself, not having to go from 0 to 100 every time things don't go my way. And that was a growth for me.
Yeah.
And so we were able to talk through it. You know, I still felt blindsided, but I still was able to talk through it without all the emotions and all the, the drama that comes along with.
And for me, and I know you didn't acknowledge that as a growth area for me, but it was a growth area for me, that I told him a week later.
Instead of 20 weeks later.
10 weeks, 20 weeks, 52 weeks later. Or not telling him at all.
Yeah. And so I don't think that was growth. I think growth is
that was growth for me.
But we worked through that. We worked through that, and as I say, it was a growing process. And I needed to have that happen, and I also needed to have that conversation, because I kept dealing with scenarios the same way, and I needed to see myself growing, and that was one of them.
And it felt good. It really felt good because I saw your growth in that. So that was a brave move. Another brave thing is personal vulnerability, like and I think that leads to what we talk about as well, opening up one's feeling in a relationship, or seeking mental health, right? Seeking help in terms of being able to just bravely become vulnerable. And that was a journey that I started last year, just appreciating that being vulnerable is a strength.
And especially for us men, we tend to, and I don't want to generalize, but a lot of us, we tend to keep things in and we don't talk about it. And so by not talking about it, we sometimes don't get the help that we can get because we don't talk about it. And so one of the ways that I had to grow in terms of our relationship, I had to sit down with a counselor and have a conversation, and throw a plug in there for Harrison Thompson. He really sat down and we had a session, and he really just helped me to look at life from a different perspective. Because as I said in episode 1, sometimes we're looking at life through the lens of our past, our upbringing, our family dynamics, and not saying, okay, can you possibly consider this as an element as to why you behave this way, or why this thing bothers you?
For sure. So definitely become more vulnerable this year in spaces where it's safe. And the last B is adventurous spirit. Have an adventurous spirit. So trying some type of extreme sport, traveling solo to an unfamiliar country, moving to a new city for better opportunities. Just do something adventurous as well.
Learn a new course, maybe even a new language.
Learn a new language. So definitely 5 ways to be brave when we think of growing boldly this year. O is be optimistic.
Wow. That's critical.
That's a big one, because when you make the decision to become brave, or that you realize that you have to be brave in order to grow boldly, one of the thoughts that generally come up, because we're humans, is what if I fail?
And you always say, well, what if I succeed?
What if I fly? What if I succeed? We tend to, we forget that somehow. We focus on the failure, but we forget that there is the other side of failure, which is success. And so being optimistic is having that positive mindset when you are taking those steps this year, when you're growing boldly in whatever area that you've chosen, viewing setbacks as a learning opportunity. And seeing it as a way for you to stretch in a lot of cases. And stretching is growth. Like I was having a conversation with a potential client recently, and she was about to make a big investment in one of the programs that I work with, and she was like, well, where will the money come from, you know? And I'm like, well, that is a good thing to have, because I remember it was whenever, however many years when I invested in Ryan Lebeck's program, that was a $15,000 program back then, and I didn't know how much where the money was coming from. I felt like I was paying a mortgage.
Yeah, you didn't have it up front.
But how it stretched me, and looking at it optimistically now, is that was a time when I learned to find the money. And that was when I made the most money in my business that year. And so looking at it from the positive versus the negative or the potential failure. Anything you want to add to optimism?
I totally agree with that. Again, the narrative that we tell ourselves, that's how we usually act or behave. Or the narrative that you hear other people tell themselves, you buy into it, and that's how we act and behave. And last week in the sermon series, an apostle was talking about sowing seed. Sometimes the seeds that we sow are words.
A doubt.
Yeah, so you sow in these seeds of doubt and sadness, and the dating pool is filled with that. And so when you're speaking and you're verbalizing that, that's what you're sowing out there. And that's what's going to return to you. And so get in the habit of sowing that positive seed. Speak life, speak positive, you know, and see what could perhaps happen when you take that initiative instead of looking at it from the negative side. Because it's so easy to be negative, because then when being positive now puts that fear, well, what if this happens? How am I going to handle this? Or what if it doesn't happen? How are people going to see me?
Yes. And I love that you said it, because that's what I was thinking about. We tend to not be optimistic or speak optimistically about our goals or the things that we want to grow in, because what if it doesn't happen? People will say something. So what?
And who are people again?
So what? So what? So what? You know, I always look at it as, even if I fail, who did I become in the process? What lesson did I learn in the process? Because sometimes we are so focused on the outcome, which is what we want to achieve, that we forget that there's a process, and perhaps the outcome is I became a different version of myself, and sometimes that's enough. And who have a problem with that? Too bad.
And then sometimes people is in our head, because we can't put a name to people, we cannot put a face to people. Sometimes it's just people in abstract, and so. And sometimes define who these people are, because then if you have people in your inner circle who are so negative, you may need to consider changing your circle.
You will.
So put a face and a name to people when you start to say, well, what will people think? And then you'll be able to better deal with it. Because then you may realize that, you know what, the people who I'm worried about, like, they're not that significant right now.
In fact, I would even challenge you to evaluate your circle when we talk about optimistic. Do you have optimism surrounding you consistently? If you don't, then that's an area of growth. Who are the people that you are surrounding yourself with? If I say that I choose, if I will make $1 million this year, $2 million, $10 million this year, the people, do you have a community that say, all right, you can do it, let's find a way to do it, or are you afraid to even say?
Because one of the examples that I clearly remember is that last year, one of my brother, he built his home, he built some apartment, and he just kept building. And he and I walk 5 days a week, and so we exercise and talk, and he was like, Glenn, I am growing in terms of building my asset. I would like to see the people in my circle also grow, because he now have this wealth of knowledge from doing it. And so I had X amount of dollars in my bank account. He was like invested in expanding the apartment unit. And I thought about it for a good 2 or 3 months, and after a while he come back to me again, what are you doing with this money? And I went to the bank. And when I asked the lady what was the interest after a year, she was like $340-something. And when I tell him that, he's like, gee, take that money out. And so the next day I went, I took the money out, and I just started buying the building supplies, because I already had the plan and all that stuff. And a year later, we have an additional unit that is now making
quadrupled.
Good investment for us.
So the people, are they helping you to think optimistically? Are you thinking optimistically? And if not, that's an area that you need to work on from a B.O.L.D standpoint.
Yes.
The third is
learning. And you
we don't know.
that's us.
It's an easy one.
You can't have a framework without having learning in it, because that's what we're about.
And if
a part of growth is learning.
If you think of Glenn Keshelle, if you ain't learning, then what you doing? No. So this is an easy one. And learning, of course, is what skills do you want to take up this year? Or when you think of the area that you want to grow boldly in, what skills do you need to learn this year? What conferences, workshops that you want to attend? What self-education? What books are you reading? What are you learning this year? And how can you step it up a notch even this year? Again, go back to my investment that I made, my brave investment. That was also, that's a learning element for me. I remember speaking to, shout out to Charmaine and Shirley, my squad, and I remember sharing just what I learned this week in the program with this coach, and she was like, one of them said, "Jesus, I need another PhD to complete this thing," and I'm like, this is such a growth edge for me this year. That I am so excited to learn and grow, because the more I learn, the more people around me, my clients, my colleagues, my friends.
Because you get to pour that knowledge and that information back out. And one of the things that we learned last year is when we started to delve deeper into artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And so
absolutely.
when I started out Googling, I started out reading articles. And next thing you know, it expanded into going to conferences just to be able to become certified.
We're now certified AI specialists, by the way. I don't think that was on our last season, because we didn't finish the season.
No, we did it afterwards,
so that's something that we learned last year. And I am, the tech geek in me just love that. But it's what is that area and how can you go deeply in it? Because that's another thing. We tend to, not everybody, but some people do learn on a surface level, and then you're wondering why you're not making progress, or you're not making bold progress, because you're too surface, right? This year, how can you go deep into a topic that you feel can benefit you in your growth this year? And if it costs money,
and it don't always have to cost money.
But
resources out there, because when I started the AI, it wasn't no money. It was just reading, viewing videos, doing the research. Then we started to invest in small
the courses,
then into the conferences, and so it took stages.
And so if it costs money, if it doesn't cost money, it will cost you time. And so make sure you make the investment in time or money.
And it may cost you time and money.
Absolutely.
If you're that serious about
and effort.
Yes.
The D. You want me to say it?
Go ahead. The D, if you say the D like that, now you have your audience in a whole frenzy, because whenever we say the D, anyway, I'm going to move past that. What's the D in your framework?
The D in my framework or our framework is determination. I know what
good. All right, so determination.
Determination. So this means consistent effort. Working towards a goal, whether it be a long-term goal, it takes consistency. And listen, I think all of us struggle with, you probably don't struggle with consistency. A lot of us struggle with consistency. I'm talking to those people who struggle with consistency. But that's a big part of determination. Looking at how can you show up on a regular basis. And there's a meme that went around sometime last year that I love, and I know it's in my phone, we don't have time to look for it, that talks about what consistency actually looks like. It may not look like showing up 100% every day, but what if today you could only show up 20%? What if tomorrow it's 100? What if Thursday it's 50%? But it's really just however you feel, still show up. I love that. So that's what determination is all about. Overcoming adversity. What does that mean to you?
First of all, I want to find out from you, why would you say maybe consistency don't?
Because I think you have the ability to be consistent very naturally. we did the strength finder test a long time ago, right? Where we talk about our top 10 strengths, our bottom 10 strengths. Consistency is a strength that some people have. And you have that strength. Now, sometimes you fall off, but I promise you, when Glenn falls off, I just be like, what's wrong with Glenn? He's sick today. That's just how consistent he is. And that comes naturally. I don't think, and you could let me know, but I don't think that's a struggle for you to be consistent.
No, it's not really a struggle. And what it does, even in terms of just simple as exercising, I do it 5 days a week, but then there are some mornings when I don't feel like doing it. And I still jump up and just do it, even if it's 20 minutes. And so it's a mindset, again, going back to what we tell ourselves.
Yeah, and those days we talk about fitness, but anything that he's doing, he's generally consistent in. When I see he don't do what he's been doing, I really be like, what's wrong with Glenn today? Like, something ain't right, because I know that he would just naturally do something consistently, routinely. I'm not the routine person, y'all. Like, yeah, that's just it.
So being deliberate now, seeing that you just out yourself and saying that you're not consistent, how are you going to grow boldly by being deliberate this year? On what areas?
You mean with determination?
Yeah.
Consistently,
Yeah.
particularly?
Yeah.
I know for me, I definitely need to be consistent in my fitness journey. That's Paul in the Bible talks about we all have a thorn. That's my thorn, y'all. Like, I need to be more consistent. That's why, this pants, let me tell you.
But I've seen you do it. I see you do 75 hard, right? And you went for 75 days exercising, drinking water, reading.
And that was one of the best experiences of my entire life.
And so for me, why, if you have been there and taste of it, why is it so difficult to?
Life happens. I think, there's priorities in different seasons. And sometimes some other areas take priority over fitness. And that's not an excuse, but it's just having that going back to that definition of what consistency is. It's not showing up perfectly every day. It's just showing up. And if I can't do a full-fledged workout, what can I do?
Yeah. So it goes back to what I'm saying, is what you tell yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you're okay with doing 20 minutes, then that's okay.
Yeah. But 20 minutes don't equate to the pasta that I eat the next day.
And see, you telling yourself the narrative, and that's how we keep getting back to the same place.
Yeah.
As a part of the determination also is that stickability, just being able to stick.
Yeah.
And then for some people, just go back at it again. You know what I'm saying? If you failed, go back at it again. We talk about what did you learn from that.
Yeah.
I remember applying to the university when I was working in a bank and I wanted to become a professor, and I applied and they turned me down the first time, and the next year I put an application back in again. Add something to the resume, because this is a year later now. What did I learn?
Yeah.
And the second time they turned me down. And then the third time, every year I go to the mail, I keep having this letter. Unfortunately we don't have a. And then on the fourth year, the fourth application.
4 years?
Yes, it was 4 years.
Jeez.
And on the fourth application, bang.
Wow.
There I go. And the thing about it, I got the letter in the mail that I was accepted as a part-time lecturer. They didn't even call me. Jesus, did I out university just now? They didn't even call me. I happened to go to the mail and saw it. And so to my surprise, after 4 attempts, and so sometimes just do it again, apply again, try again.
Yeah, and then from there, your journey as a university professor, from being a banker, that journey has allowed you to grow so much. Just doing something that you absolutely love, and also realize that was an area of growth for you, because now you've become a different person.
Totally different.
New opportunities have come for you, and so I love that as an example of determination. So when we think of growing boldly, what area do you want to grow boldly in that you need to be determined?
Yes, because I've seen my gift manifested after that process.
Yeah.
Because before I didn't have the teaching skills honed and all that stuff. And so after taking that step, I was able to see myself building and building my skills.
Yeah. So as a recap, boldly stands for bravery, being optimistic. You have to learn something and you have to be determined. And so the growth challenge, the bold growth challenge this year is to look at one of those areas and see what step you can make. What area do you need to be bold in this week?
Yeah.
Where do you need to be optimistic in? What skill do you need to learn, or where do you need to show some more determination this week? Let us know in the comments so we can celebrate you. I love this. Listen, this is going to be a good season. We're going to challenge you to grow boldly as we challenge ourselves to grow boldly.
For sure.
And be happy to have you along for the ride. Until then,
Dan there, and Keshelle there,
encouraging you to
and we encourage you to grow
grow boldly. See you next episode.